I think every woman has stood in front of the mirror at some point in time and said, where did this muffin top come from? We start noticing that our diet and exercise that's always worked no longer works. And so today we're going to talk about why that happens. And we're going to talk about what happens in the body from a hormone perspective and also metabolically, and why your body needs a different approach in midlife. So I want to start with a few statistics because, as you know, I'm a little bit of a nerd, but also I think it kind of helps us to understand that we definitely need a different approach when we hit midlife. So 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And so that means that we have problems with blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol, and excess belly fat. And it even gets worse for middle-aged women because we have the highest rate of obesity of any age group. And wait, there's more. We're even twice as likely to develop metabolic disease. So things like diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or cardiovascular disease. So I think we all know that our bodies change in our 40s, but I don't think we fully understand what's happening and certainly not what to do about it. So let's talk about what's happening inside the body. So number one, our hormones are shifting, our metabolism is slowing, insulin sensitivity or our ability to regulate our blood sugar has changed, our muscle mass is declining. Often we're more sedentary now these days because we have jobs that require more sitting, and we're on electronics quite a lot more than we used to be. And then stress goes up in midlife because typically we are working, managing a family, but then also a lot of times managing aging parents. And then also sleep quality goes down as well. But often the advice for losing weight stays the same. They'll tell us to restrict calories, move more, be more disciplined, do more cardio. So we try the things like low calorie, more exercise, pushing harder. And sometimes it works temporarily or not at all. And then a lot of times we gain the weight back and a little more. So then we have the cycle of shame again of what's wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? But the problem is that this approach completely ignores this hormonal change that's happening in our body. And this change is a huge stressor. So our body has changed and it needs a different approach now. So weight gain after 40 is really just a sign that your body's out of balance and it needs greater support. So there are three hormones that actually drive weight gain after 40, and those are estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol. So the first one is estrogen, and I think most of us know a little bit about that, but I think we tend to think it's just about making our skin look good, but it actually does quite a bit more. So it actually controls where we store fat, and so before the age of 40, it tends to send fat more to our thigh area. It supports a healthy metabolism and appetite regulation, quality sleep, and then also neurotransmitter production, cognition, and then also our stress response, as well as bone density. And then when we hit 40, it begins to kind of dip, and the fat storage shifts from our hips and then more to what we call the visceral fat area. So visceral fat is fat that forms around our organs, and that type of fat really puts us at risk for metabolic disease, things like diabetes. And so also we don't regulate our blood sugar as well. Sleep is not as good and as deep as it once was. Our hunger will typically increase and cravings will tend to spike. So we may be eating the same, but our body's actually managing things quite differently. Progesterone is our calming hormone. So what it does when it's normal is it supports neurotransmitter production, brain function, and protection, and then it calms our nervous system and it helps us to handle stress. It also supports deep sleep, blood sugar regulation, and immune function. It also balances cortisol. So what happens when that declines, we're typically going to feel more anxious. We're going to be overwhelmed more easily. Sleep's not going to be as deep and restorative. And then cortisol rises. And so when we have more cortisol, we're going to store more belly fat. So typically what happens when that dips, we're just more stressed. We're having less good quality sleep and more belly fat. So let's talk about the third hormone, cortisol. So estrogen and progesterone dip, but cortisol actually goes up after the age of 40. And so what happens when it goes up is it drives belly fat. So we're going to store fat around our middle. It also creates insulin resistance or the inability to regulate our blood sugar. It also causes muscle breakdown. and it increases our sugar cravings, and it disrupts our sleep. So we really have this perfect storm of estrogen and progesterone dipping and then cortisol rising. And so all of those things together really lead to that excess belly fat that we call the muffin top. So the other thing that happens is our metabolism slows in midlife, and so it slows by about 5% per decade after 40. We also are losing our muscle mass, and so typically after the age of 30 that begins to happen. After the age of 50 we're losing about 1% per year. And so when we lose muscle mass, that also slows our metabolism. So we're burning fewer calories at rest. And then the result is that we're eating the same amount of food as we did before, but now we're gaining weight. So next, let's talk about why extreme dieting doesn't work in midlife anymore. So when we restrict calories, that actually slows our metabolism. It raises cortisol because the body perceives stress. It thinks it's in starvation mode, and it causes you to break down muscle, which we're already losing. So we a lot of times will have this rebound weight gain, and we end up in a worse situation than we began in. So let's talk about what your body needs now. One thing that's really important to understand is that all of these hormonal shifts are a big stressor on your body, and it simply can't compensate the way that it once did. So your body needs more support and less stress. And often as women, we're just told that HRT is the fix for all of this, and that's not a bad thing. But what I do think is a better way to approach things is to give our bodies the ability to try to restore balance themselves first, because then you may not need HRT at all, or if you do need it, you might need less. So I think it's always really good to remember that no drug is ever going to overcome the way that we live. So we always want to start with lifestyle first. So let's start with sleep. So sleep is non-negotiable in this stage of life. When we have poor sleep, our cortisol is going to go up. That leads to the belly fat muffin top that we're talking about. It also makes our blood sugar go up. And when blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. Also, we're going to have more hunger because our hunger hormones are going to go up. And if we want to lose weight, we actually have to work on sleep, because at some point you're going to hit a wall. Most of the time when I work with women, they can begin to lose weight, but we will at some point hit a point where they just can't lose any more weight. And what I typically find out is that sleep is being cut short. Women are notorious for cheating sleep. Most women that I work with will tell me they're getting anywhere from 5 to 6 hours a night, but we really need 7 to 8 minimum. So what can you do about that? So the best thing that you can do is start to implement sleep hygiene practices. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, try to go to bed and get up at the same time if you can. Get off electronics and turn down your lights an hour before bed. In the morning, if you could go outside and get some sunlight, that resets your circadian rhythm. Also doing some breath work and just having the same rhythm every night. So, an hour before bed, start gearing down, put your pajamas on, maybe read a book, but train your body so that it knows that at the same time every night, when 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock rolls around, that this is her time, she's gearing down to go to bed, and your body naturally will begin to gear down and prepare for sleep, and it just makes the transition so much easier. Of all the things that I think really help women, I would say having a routine is probably number one. Next, let's talk about stress. Stress is a real hidden driver for excess weight, because chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated. When cortisol is elevated, our body's going to store belly fat. So we can eat perfectly and still gain weight if stress isn't addressed. So what can you do about stress? So I think some things like electrolytes can be really helpful, adrenal cocktails. I'm actually eating more carbohydrates, which is probably not something you want to hear, but it actually does support our adrenals. Things like adaptogens like ashwagandha or glandular supports can also be helpful, but definitely talk to your provider before starting any of those things. Also, just reducing stressors and dealing with trauma. So if you have an ACE score that's above 4, or if you've dealt with trauma in your life, definitely encourage you to deal with that, because when we've had those things happen, our nervous system is stuck in fight or flight often. And again, that's a real driver for excess weight. Also, breath work, Singing, gargling, laughing, and exercise can all be very supportive when it comes to dealing with stress. So when it comes to food, what I want you to keep in mind is not restricting and actually upgrading the quality of your food from ultra-processed convenience food to food that is from a farm and not a factory. So we want to eat things that are sold on the perimeter of the grocery store, your vegetables, your fruits, your meats, your dairy, eggs. Whole foods that don't require a label. So what's interesting about it is we need these nutrients to be able to make the hormones that we're missing. And so if we restrict our diet, we're actually going to make our hormone situation even worse. And so we need protein to make the muscle that we need. We need fats and particularly cholesterol to make hormones. And we also need fiber to help our bodies escort toxins and excess estrogen out of the body. So in essence, we need more nutrients and less restriction. Next, let's talk about movement. So in midlife, what we want to focus on is strength training because we are already losing muscle. Remember, I told you at age 30, we begin to lose muscle mass, and at age 50, we're losing 1% a year. So we really want to focus on building muscle that's going to increase our metabolism. We're going to burn more calories at rest. So we want to focus on strength training over endless cardio and exercise that really helps our metabolism and doesn't exhaust us. So I think the biggest thing with exercise is we really need to listen to our bodies. If you work out one day and the next day you're exhausted, that's a sign that you've done too much. So the other thing is just moving more frequently throughout the day. That's one of the best things you can do for your metabolism. So every hour, set an alarm on your phone, get up and take a short walk around the room, do some body weight squats, anything like that helps. It doesn't have to be a lot, even just 30 seconds. Next, let's talk about toxin exposure and how toxins can actually cause your body to gain fat. So when we're exposed to toxins, they actually disrupt our hormones and they cause the body to store fat. We actually call them obesogens. They are also endocrine disruptors, meaning that they mess with all of the hormones in our body. Many of them mimic estrogen and they confuse our body. Some of the common sources are things like water, personal care products, plastic, air that we breathe, household cleaners, fragrances that we put on our body. So what I tell women to do is focus on clean air, clean water, clean food, and clean products. And start with replacing the things that you use on a daily basis because that's going to make the greatest impact. So as you run out of things, look for cleaner options. A great website is ewg.org. You can look for personal care products and cleaning products on that website. And if you want to make a big impact right out of the gate, one of the best things that you can do is add air filtration to your home because 80% of the toxins that we're exposed to come through the air that we breathe. So just remember when it comes to toxin exposure, all of these small changes over time really make a big impact. The other thing that I think is really important in this journey is getting our mindset right. We've got to get rid of the mindset of, pushing our body and restricting because those things absolutely do not work in this phase of life. We need to approach our body with compassion. We need to learn to listen to it and remember that this is about trying to steward our body through this season well. So here's what happens when we address all 6 key areas together: mindset, sleep, stress, movement, detox, and nutrition. We actually give our body the opportunity to restore balance. So when we improve sleep, we're going to decrease cortisol and belly fat. When stress decreases, we're going to balance those hormones and our cravings are going to decrease. When we eat whole foods, we're going to regulate our blood sugar better. When we build muscle, we're going to improve our metabolism. When we reduce toxins, we're going to quit storing fat. And when we shift our mindset and we quit trying to push our bodies and we approach our bodies from love and honor, then we can make sustainable change. So I want you to know your body can thrive after 40 when you give it what it needs. More rest, less stress, more nourishment, less restriction, more movement that heals instead of hurts, and less toxin exposure. So that's when your body can actually release the weight, transform your health, and reclaim the abundant life that you were created for. So I want you to know your body is not broken after 40. It's just hormonally and metabolically different, and it needs different support. The women who are successful after 40 are women who understand what's happening hormonally and metabolically. They've learned to listen to their bodies and support their bodies and have stopped restricting and started focusing on restoring. So, I do have some additional resources for you. I created the Wheel of Wellness and Weight Loss, and it will help you to quickly assess all 6 key areas. It will give you 3 pages of support and ideas that you can use to restore balance in your own life. It comes with a video series and emails that will help clarify and explain different topics and encourage you. So all you have to do is go to inspiredwell.org/wheel, and you'll get a PDF download and then access to all those other resources as well. And if you're ready to take a deeper dive on weight loss, I just want to invite you to join the wait list for my wellness-based weight loss course. We will take an in-depth look at all 6 key areas, and you'll have a community of other women around you to support you. So all you have to do is go to inspiredwell.org/waitlist. So your body can release the weight after 40 when you understand what's going on and you give it the support that it needs. And please remember, everything that we talked about today is not medical advice. Please talk to your medical provider before you make any changes. Until next time, stay inspired.